This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
Welcome in, my friends, to another episode of Behind the Pen. My name is Mike Rankin, and I will be your host as always. And we have a treat for you, and I say we because I am joined by the man, the myth, the legend, Ricky Widmer.
What's up, guys?
Hey, what's up, my man? So, it's good to have you. I'm excited about this podcast because we have a lot to talk about, and we're going to go back to our roots here Behind the Pen because if you've been following since the start, I made it very clear that I'm a Cubs, Bears, Chicago guy. I'm going to mention the White Sox, too, because I love baseball, but... So we're going to talk about all four of those topics today.
We're both Chicago guys, except in football, I like the superior team in the North.
Well, he's talking about the Vikings, and I just don't understand how someone could suggest that the Vikings are superior with Teddy Bridgewater as their quarterback. That's just me.
Superior franchise, man. Skull Vikes.
I don't think so. Anyway, we're going to introduce our Patreon page because that's very important to us. We value your time, we value your opinions, and that's why we want to bring you more and do more for you. If you become a Patreon, go to patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcasts. Donate as much as you want, and we will serve you more so than we already do now because that's our job. Also, follow us on Twitter and everything else. It'll be in the description below. All right, Ricky. So, what do you want to talk first? Cubs? Cool, because we're going to talk Cubs first.
Works for me.
Yeah, you know what? It's July 21st. The Cubs have the best record in baseball again. You know, it was kind of a bit scary there for a little bit going into the second half, entering the All-Star break, but it looks like all wheels are turning in the right motion right now.
Well, it looks like we're back to the kind of... We're not as hot as we were when we started the season, but it looks like when we started, we were still in a groove, but we weren't quite as bad as we were right before the All-Star break. I'm not nervous anymore, if that makes a little more sense.
Because, you know, at one point you were ready to blow it up and start over, huh?
I wasn't there, but I wasn't far.
Yeah, and you know what gives me hope is that the Cubs are run by competent GMs and this organization from top to bottom.
Well, and somebody who knows how to break curses, man.
Oh, don't even mention the superstition. Come on, man. I know you're superstitious. I just can't do the whole curse thing anymore.
The curse, I've lived it too long to say that it doesn't exist.
Well, you know, you had the Black Cat in 69.
I have witnessed the collapse. Things that usually do not happen.
Bartman, the GOAT, 45.
No, not Bartman. I'm talking about fucking Gonzalez. That's the first asshole.
Well, we're not going to dive back into, 13 years ago?
There's no couch here. I'm not going to lay on it. You're not my therapist. Let's just move on.
You know what? I love talking about 03 as much as I hate that experience, but I love talking about it because I'm so passionate about it. But we're going to focus in the now because that's what's important.
So all you've got to do, make me happy.
Well, the Cubs are going to win the World Series, and that's it. That's all it is. We can end this conversation now, right?
Yeah, we just end the podcast right now.
Well,
go home.
as the Cubs are moving forward, they made a move to upgrade their bullpen because as we look at this roster and how it's constructed, the obvious need was in relief, and specifically from the left side. They managed to trade Dan Vogelbach, a person who was touted as a guy who will come up, and he's a top prospect. He's built as a hitter, big lefty, projects to be a DH, he just didn't have a future here in the Chicago because Anthony Rizzo plays 160 games a year.
He was kind of getting cock-blocked.
So what the Cubs got in return was a cost-controlled lefty reliever in Mike Montgomery, who was kind of a starter, but I see him more as a reliever, especially now. He's 27 years old, controlled until I believe 2021. And Ricky, I want to hear your thoughts on this move.
Well, and the first thing I thought of when I saw the deal was, okay, cool, we got what we wanted. But when I saw Vogelbach's name, I immediately thought to myself, well, shit, that means we're not getting Andrew Miller or Aroldis Chapman. And the reason why I say that is Vogelbach was a key piece, or he was when talks were going on. He was a key piece in that Yankee deal because the thing that I saw between the Cubs and the Yankees in their conversations was I never thought the Yankees would give us Miller or Chapman without getting a young player like a Vogelbach who, like you said, kind of fits into that DH. They can either play him at first base because they have an aging Teixeira as their main guy who's injured half the time, or they could put him at the DH, whatever they choose. Now that Vogelbach is gone and he's now with the Seattle Mariners, I don't think we will go I don't think the Cubs go out and trade for a Miller or a Chapman because we don't have Vogelbach and we got Mike Montgomery. However, Montgomery does bring in a guy who is a lefty who's also good against lefties, and that's what the Cubs needed. They either needed a left-handed pitcher or just somebody who could get lefties out.
Sure, let me just bounce off that opinion real quick. I just want to say this. The idea that the Cubs aren't going to trade for either Miller or Chapman because they got Montgomery, that's, that opportunity's still on the table.
I think they go different now. I think they're going more for a Josh Riddick now.
Oh, we'll get to that. But what I wanted to just reiterate is that just because they got a lefty reliever doesn't mean they're out of the market in the. But listen.
I just think it's harder. It's harder.
The thing is, you mentioned Vogelbach was a piece in that potential deal. Now he wasn't the main piece. The main piece was Kyle Schwarber. They were asking for Kyle Schwarber.
Well, they're not getting.
And that's
Kyle
not going to happen.
They're not getting the Schwarber daddy.
No, it's not going to happen. So is the possibility of the Cubs, reel in a guy like Chapman or Miller? Yeah, it's there, but I don't think it's going to happen, and I agree with you in that sense. With Vogelbach, I think it's the right move, especially because of the value you get in return of Montgomery. They also got a AAA pitcher, and the Cubs also traded a AA pitcher. But the most important part of the deal was Vogelbach going to an AL team who projects to be an American League hitter, and the Cubs get a lefty who, as you said, gets lefties out, but I'm really encouraged by his development in the big leagues, especially this year. He's got a 2.5 ERA, maybe sub 2.5 ERA right now, and he's not, as a guy who's a lefty, he's not giving up as many hits as he is pitching. Well, that's a successful reliever right there.
And I'm looking at the split right now, lefty versus righty for Mike Montgomery. And has he seen a lot more righties? Of course, because they're all over baseball. But when I look at him against lefties, per se against righties, he's striking out righties more, but lefties just they're not getting a good average, and they're not getting on base as much as the righties, where lefties are batting only $164.
That's good.
Against Montgomery. And I know average is that kind of weird stat where it's like you can't just take the average. I mean, the OBP, what I'm looking for is 269 compared to 306.
That's mean he's getting guys out and he's not walking as many. Well, I can't say he's not walking as many because
I was almost going to read off the OPS, but I was looking for on base.
The problem though is that he becomes a little erratic. His walk numbers are a little bit high for a reliever who, comes in for an inning or two, but I'm excited about this move. Theo Epstein had a lot of good things to say about Montgomery. He said that he's coming into his own. As
long as he can come in, contribute now, and the best thing is we have control over this guy.
Right, and that's the biggest value you get in return for Vogelbach because, like we said, he's not going to be a free agent until after 2020 or whatever it was. So I'm excited about this move. That was a big upgrade in the bullpen. Now the corresponding move might relate to Clayton Richard. He might be gone. That might be it for him. So are the Cubs done making moves here? No, this is just the beginning, fellas.
Well, it's not the end until August 1st. That's the way I see it.
Well, it's because the Cubs always play well in the market around this time. You see Theo Epstein working his magic.
Plays great in the market around this time.
Chad Hoyer some credit too, because they worked the dynamic duo. They did a pretty good job coming in 2011 until now. They're building something for sustained success, and that's why, going back to the Schwarber thing, I don't want him to go anywhere.
No. No, I think they can convert him into an outfielder.
Are very quick into assuming that, you want to win now, get the pieces for him to win now. Look, right now what the Cubs have going for them is a solid core of players that they can build around, and that's obvious. But the thing is, you're going to have to get rid of assets at this point of the deadline. You saw it with Vogelbach. Now, is he a big-time loss? Not really, because the Cubs got Rizzo. Now we're going to look at guys like Gleyber Torres. I think Eloy Jimenez is going to stay. If he gets traded, I'm going to be upset. But Billy McKinney's on the table. Many pieces that the Cubs can afford to move. And you brought up Josh Reddick, and I personally am hoping that the Cubs find a way to make a deal with the Oakland Athletics. He and FC and Billy Beane have this nice relationship going back to Samardzija Hamill trade that brought in Addison Russell. I'm excited to see if the Cubs can land a Reddick, and on top of that,
bring in some young prospects like they did with Russell?
Possibly, but at the same time, it's like, well, you need more bullpen help, so why don't you throw in a Ryan Madsen? So Ryan Madsen and Josh Reddick coming in, that's killing two birds in one move.
No, I think with the Cubs, going back to kind of pull back what we talked about a few minutes ago with this, I think Josh Reddick is the guy that the Cubs kind of turn their attention to. I know earlier you said, like, oh, we could still get Miller, we could still get Chapman without a Vogelbach, but how I see everything playing out is the Cubs are going to say, okay, well, we got our bullpen help. We can maybe get some more bullpen help in a trade with Oakland while getting a Josh Reddick coming along. And I see Chapman and or Miller, probably a one, not both. They're going to Texas. Texas is going to make a move with the young stars that they have to try to get Miller or Chapman.
It's going to be...
And that's why I don't think neither of them are going to come to the Cubs.
An interesting week and a half or so. Because this is the time right now where things get going, things get moving, pieces are being moved. The White Sox are in conversations of going into a complete rebuild. We're going to preview that in a little bit, but staying on this Cubs conversation, I want to give some credit to the starting rotation, because if you look back and look, what was their incredible start? What was it, 23-6, something insane like that. Their starting rotation was consistent. They were dominant.
Phenomenal. Phenomenal, as Jim Rome would say.
Oh, boy. They were, simple as that. They were fantastic. Now, coming out of the break, they looked like they were getting that confidence back where they were just consistently putting away top teams like Texas, one of the best hitting teams in baseball, and the New York Mets. They won 2 out of 3 against both series at home, so that's encouraging. I want to talk about Kyle Hendricks a little bit, because what Kyle Hendricks is turning into is a freaking stud. This man is so fun to watch as he's manipulating the strike zone, working in and out of the both corners of the plate. Hitters can't adjust to this guy. He's not overpowering you with this fastball, but he's got so much movement, and the thing with his movement is he has the utmost control, and hitters are just confused up there. Quite frankly, you look at his changeup and his disappearing changeup, his two-seam fastball that just can work both ends of the play. Right now, Kyle Hendricks is everything we've asked for and more. So, looking at the starting rotation, would they, Ricky, try and add another starter? Because do you have, the question is then, if they do go for another starter, is do you have faith in either Hamill, Lackey, or Hendricks to be the guys in the playoffs?
I kind of, to me, I would say no. And the reason being is the best thing about Kyle Hendricks that I love is he's only given up 1 run the entire month of July, and it's not an earned run. He has not given up an earned run since June 29th in the 9-2 victory in Cincinnati, and he gave up the only 2 runs via a 2-run homer, I believe. So he's only given up 1 run since July. He's 3-1. No, actually 3-0. He didn't get the decision in the 1 loss of the games he pitched here in July. I kind of feel like you don't go for a starter. And the reason being, when we get to playoff time, I think what the Cubs could do, will Joe Madden do it? Probably not, because he doesn't talk to me and get my opinion at all, is
probably a good thing.
I think you could go and say, and it's going to be different this year because we're not a wild card team. Last year, the wild card kind of threw a weird wrench at us. You had to have Arrieta pitch that wild card game, and then you start the season, okay, if we go on a 3-man rotation, because Arrieta pitched the wild card game, it's Lester, Hamill, Hendricks. This year, because we most likely aren't going to have that wild card game, it'll be Arrieta, Lester, and Hendricks, and then that 4th and 5th game, I'm not even talking about that. Based on what could happen is, I think that maybe it depends. If we're up 2-1 going into that 4th game, maybe a Hamels. If we're down 2-1,
Cole Hamels. Hamels is a different player.
You could have Hamill there. You could have Arrieta pitch that game 4, depending on, let's say we're down 2-1.
No, I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah, that's a good point.
And you could either have, then you can have Hamill and Lackey help out in the bullpen.
That's the thing. You rely on your Arrietas, your Lesters, and I'm going to throw in John Lackey as your 3, because that's why they got him.
Yeah.
That's why they got him. And he's proven that he's successful in the playoffs.
If Kyle Hendricks continues to...
Sure.
Because this is kind of like if Arrieta had a tear last year,
Well, Kyle Hendricks right now.
This is a Kyle Hendricks Arrieta.
It's similar
tear.
in the sense that with Arrieta, you felt like you could win every single time he pitched.
This is phenomenal for Kyle Hendricks.
And right now, Kyle Hendricks, every time they're out there, it seems like they're winning the ball game. So I agree with you. I think right now you ride Hendricks as much as you can, but we'll see how.
But if he cools off, Lackey's your
well,
third.
and then you can manipulate the rotation a little bit. We'll see what happens there. But overall, right now the Cubs are sitting pretty. Still the best team in baseball, in my opinion. They're going to have to worry about the Giants and the Nationals later.
And it looks like as we're recording this podcast on Thursday, tomorrow, which is Friday, we could be getting our leadoff guy back.
Yes, Dexter Fowler is going to be a huge boost to this lineup.
That is going to be, that's
Absolutely.
the key. That's the key to this offense.
All right, so to wrap up this Cubs conversation, you say, hypothetically, they do trade for Josh Reddick, which I'm in favor for. Absolutely. You have Reddick in left, Fowler in center, Hayward and right. That's pretty damn good. And then you have a bullpen that's with Mike Montgomery and Hector Rondon, who has been kind of shaky.
And any piece we can try to steal away from the A's in a Reddick deal.
Sure.
Maybe.
So hopefully that's Ryan Madsen or Sean Doolittle. More so Madsen, but we'll see about that. I'm really excited about what the Cubs are going to do moving forward. I have the utmost faith that they're going to win this division. I don't think that was in question, even going back to April.
Well, and the interesting thing will be if we get a Reddick with the lineup you said with Reddick in left, Hayward in right.
That moves
Fowler
Baez to a utility
in center
position.
Well, it moves Baez to a utility, but the one thing I kind of think of is Chris Bryant. It makes him a third. It makes him the third
He's
baseman.
Gonna be at third.
He's
Absolutely.
not going to do this thing where, because you know Chris, he likes to play third a little bit, but he likes to play left field even more. He likes playing the outfield.
You can do it all, man.
So I feel like with that, and then you've got Contreras that you can fit in there. So it's one of those things where it's a good problem to have for the Cubs, where it's like, hey, you know what? We have too many people.
Yeah. So to put a bow on this, I'm really interested to see how they maneuver around this roster and their 40-man and especially their 25-man. I want to see if Almora sticks around. I don't know if Chris Coughlin's going to be around.
I would like if Almora stuck around.
Me too.
I really like that kid.
I like him a lot. So overall, I'm really excited about the Cubs, obviously, and I think they're going to be right in the middle, and they're going to win the World Series this year, and it's as simple as that. So
I'm not quite confident enough to say it.
Come on.
I'm not confident to say it because my life has been one big curse.
Well, don't worry
another.
about that. This is 2016. The UFC's running the show, and everything's all good and dandy, right? Okay,
I
cool.
am nervously optimistic. That's how I will quote myself on that one. Yeah.